once you leave land, you come out here. The more time you spend out in this natural world, the more in step you become with it. So it's a great place to be doing this for Dale, and it's a very peaceful place. And very lastly, if you ever want to be instantly reconnected with anybody that you laid to rest at sea, come down to the seashore anywhere in the world. It doesn't necessarily have to be right here. It could be Atlantic, Pacific, you're overseas, you're on a cruise ship, wherever you might be, because the oceans of the world connect us all. In fact, the water that's here now circulates around the globe and it comes back in 7 years, up and down with the currents. It's just amazing. But that ocean connects us all. And so you come down to the seashore, all the good memories will come back, smile will come back on your face, and you can talk to Dale. I talk to my family every day out here, so that's a good thing.
I just want to thank everybody for coming today to celebrate my father's life and the memories that he left us that are shared here by all. Whether he was in your life for a while, for years, or in my case for a lifetime, he left an impression, that which brings us all together today. My dad was born in Bakersfield to Adolph and Marion Holmes on October 7th, 1938. He was the youngest of 3 children. He had 2 sisters, Doris, who has passed away, and Diane, who lives in Sacramento. He married my mom, Patricia, in 1959, and I was born in 1961 as their only child, and he has a grandson, Tristan, who's here today. After Bakersfield, they moved to a small 3-acre ranch in Garden Grove when my father was young. In his glorious place, they had horses, goats, chickens, cats, dogs, parakeets, and even a pet crow that used to ride on the family dog's back. I know this is where my father's love of animals came to fruition and was passed on to me. His mother always used to say she loved animals more than people. My dad carried on that tradition. And this is something that my father and she all agree upon. When my dad was in high school, he joined the 4-H club, which is an after-school program where you research, learn to tend and care for a certain type of animal. So he did equines. I know that is something that furthered my dad's interest in horses and later in life, mules in particular. I have such fond memories of where my father grew up, as I got to visit there every other summer. With my cousin, who is my age and the best of tomboys, we never wore shoes, and we were always up in their huge avocado trees. They had like 50 that surrounded their property. We were making forts, climbing from tree to tree, and when we could no longer stand the trees because of the huge circular driveway, my grandfather built literally a pulley swing so we could stand the trees, run across the roof of the house, get back in the trees, and then take the pulley swing back into the trees. And it was just an amazing, amazing place to be. We never came down from the trees. When my grandmother used to come out, she'd go, Darla, Luann. She was like always looking for us up in the trees. When we weren't there, we were in the barns with the animals, feeding the animals, petting the animals. Just, it was paradise. I have a few fond memories of my father. When we were at the ranch together, I was probably 7 or 8. And my dad took me on this old rickety bicycle, and I was sitting on the handlebars, and he started singing Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head. And when he got to the part where it says, and just like the guys whose feet were too big for his bed, I started cracking up. I thought he made it up. And I was like, Dad, you made that up. I'm on the front of the bike. I'm laughing. And he's singing. He's like, no, I didn't make it up. I swear. I'm like, you did too. Oh, my gosh. So we were laughing so hard. Literally, I had to get off the bike, and we just sat there and laughed. And that's one of my fondest memories of him, the other one is when he took me skiing for the first time. Well, I picked it up immediately and took off. I didn't even know what I was doing. And my dad took off after me, and he literally ended up in a big snowplow in trees. He went into the trees. There was a snowplow parked in the trees. He got totally like hooked up in the loop of them. So then I had to ski down and get the people to come up to unwind him from the snowplow. But he was like, oh my gosh, my kid, she just took off. So that was one of my favorite memories of him. My dad loves the outdoors, and his dream was to just be in a town where he had good friends. And I can say in Fallbrook, that's where that happened. Leanne, Sean, Deborah, I mean, you were his world. I mean, he really finally, I think for the first time in my father's life, felt like he belonged and had people that really cared about him and loved him and checked on him. And just after all this time, I just feel he had the land he wanted. His mules were not boarded anymore. They were right there on his property. He'd walk out his door with his coffee in the morning, and the mules would be like, oh, like, are you going to feed me or what, right?
How was that again?
Exactly. And his truck used to pull into the driveway because he had that diesel. It was so fun because he'd lean his head out the window and he'd go, hello, mules. And they'd be like, oh, like totally like shouting at him. And so that was beautiful. You got that on tape, right? I can never live that down. I'll never forget, we were at a restaurant, an Italian restaurant. What was the restaurant, Leanne? The little restaurant
Bistro Brothers, right?
Bistro Brothers, and they have an outdoor, like, Sinatra type band. And Mark and I were there with him, and my dad just got up and he walked over to this tall, beautiful blonde, and he just said, would you like to dance? And she got up and she's like, well, okay. And my dad was such a great dancer, and he danced her all over that thing, and he came back and he winked at Mark and he goes, see, I still got it. My dad, when I was 19 or 20, I had these 3 gorgeous girlfriends. I was like the runt of the group. They were like 6 feet, Barb was, with legs like from here to here. And then Pam was all voluptuous, right? And then Cindy was exotic. She was Egyptian and Swedish. And those 3 girls used to come over, and my dad was like in hog heaven. And they'd be like, hi, Daly. And they called him Daly. And he was like, hi, girls. And then Barb would lay like on the floor with her legs up, watching TV. And my dad was just like, oh my God. He loved the women. My dad was an extremely independent man and so healthy that when that happened to him, it was such a shock. He just chopped like 5 cords of firewood like the week before. I mean, it was stacked 5 feet tall and 15 feet long. And it was the last thing he wanted. So, him, in usual fashion, decided after a couple years, because there was no cure to be found, to end his suffering. And he lived and died on his terms. I'm always going to be proud of him because he was such a hard worker. He didn't love easily, but when he did, he loved hard. He was a man of honor. His handshake was his bond, and he was a beautiful and gentle human being. And he always said, I was born in the wrong century, that he should have been born in the 1800s with the cowboys, running a farm and living off the land. Well, I believe he got at least a piece of his wish in Fallbrook with all of you. And I am forever grateful to each of you that had your own individual and unique relationship with him. I will miss him terribly. I will remember him as my big, strong pop, who I believe is now in heaven in the arms of Jesus, fully healed, in his prime of youth, dancing with tall, long-legged, beautiful angels, saying to himself, hell, if I had known this was up here, I would have left sooner. Thank you.
Really good.
Yeah, and I live in Fallbrook. I'm Dale's neighbor, and of course he was the favorite on the street. My kids were little when he moved into town, but as soon as they spotted those mules, they said to me, Mama, go ask that man if we could go feed the mules. And so that's how I met Dale. Is I just went up there. His gate was always open to everybody on the street, and I asked him about it, and he said, well, sure. Would you like a glass of wine? So he would sit outside on his lovely patio with a glass of wine and a good book, and I knew that I could walk up there at any time, and I did it often because we walked our dog around the loop, and if I saw his feet sticking out, I would tell Sean or whoever I was walking with, I'd say, I'm gonna go see Dale. I'm gonna go visit Dale for a while. I'll be back in an hour. Because when you went to see Dale, it wasn't a quick trip. It
Right.
was, you were there for a good hour or longer. He was very sweet to everyone on the street. Everyone loved Dale. He was a huge personality. He would light up the room when he walked in. Of course, he couldn't help it because he was a giant.
Yeah.
And he walks in the door, and here's this gigantic man with a big smile and a heart of gold. And I really enjoyed having him as my neighbor. He was like a great uncle or a stepdad, and I could go and talk to him about anything that was bothering me. Whether it be school, he liked to hear my school stories for the kids, my own family, my own parents. I would shoot, stories to him, and he would coach me on how to handle certain things. He just was wise beyond his years, and I'm just so grateful I got to be a part of his life.
And Leanne graciously took my dad's dog Tina and has her to this day, and would bring her, Tina, and Leanne and Sean to go visit my father. And they were one of the few visitors that came to see him, and he loved her dearly, and it was so grateful.
I'm out packing, and then all of a sudden Tina's running up the hill and ran into the yard, and here I see the police lady Michelle running up after. I said, what's going on here? How come Tina's here? And then she told me, and then I said, Tina's mine. I got dibs. She's my girl. So, but it was so unusual that because he had been to our house so frequently, and my dog Tommy and Tina were puppies together, and so it was just the right thing to do was to keep Tina. She's our girl and love her to death. But it was so unusual. She knew where to go.